Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Ute Dash. I am one of your hosts, Sammy Mora, the sports editor for the Daily Utah Chronicle on the campus of the University of Utah. And today, as always, I am joined by the lovely Cole Bagley. Cole, how are you?
I'm excited, Sammy. I think there's a really good chance that we will get to see our U boys play at Rice Eccles this weekend. I really do.
It's a very good chance. Very good. We'll get to that. Actually, let's just jump into it. It goes in with this topic. Did the Pac-12 rush into this 2020 season? Because from our perspective here at Utah, it's kind of feeling that way. It is.
Yeah, and Sammy, in one of our first episodes of Ute Dash, we talked about the initial response that the Pac-12 had to shutting down the season and delaying to spring. And my initial thought there was that was not the right decision. I will stand by that. However, this reaction to it, jumping in late in the game just to not be the last Power 5 conference to not play, seemed like a publicity stunt, and they just didn't want to be the last one, and it's just been, in my opinion, a disaster.
It's been terrible. The conference has been playing for 3 weeks now, and we've already had 5 games canceled. 5? Yeah, Cal and Washington, Utah, Arizona. Yeah, and then 2 more last week, and then already the ASU Colorado game this week. Mm-hmm. So there's already been 5 games canceled. Over half of the conference has been affected by this. They're not in a good spot. They didn't want to be the only P5 who didn't play, because everyone already talks crap on the Pac-12 as it is, as a joke, and they're like, well, we can't be the joke again, and we can't be in the wrong with this too. We have to be playing, otherwise we're going to be missing out. And yes, I understand all of these schools, we're going to lose lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money for this, but at the same time, you got to think about these players' health and safety over anything. And at this point, Utah's going to be lucky to play 4 games, in my opinion. They need to play this week. They're probably not going to play next week against Arizona State, given how things are going down in Tempe. They're going to play 4 games. And at this point, they're just a bunch of exhibition games for me. There's not just get the young guys some reps, and let's just start fresh next year.
Yeah, and there may be people that would argue, well, if we delay till spring, we'd be the only conference that's doing that. Of course, they'd be the only Power 5. They wouldn't be contending for a college football playoff, and they wouldn't get a bowl game. You know what? I don't know if a lot of those things are going to happen anyways. I don't really see a Pac-12 team qualifying for the college football playoff. And even if they do, we can't even get through our conference games. How do we expect to travel across the country and to play against teams like Alabama or Notre Dame or something like that, regardless if it's Utah or Oregon or at USC, whoever? That's not going to happen. And the same goes for the bowl games. I don't know how many bowl games are legitimately going to happen. I mean, I think the college football playoff semifinal bowl games will take place, and maybe the Rose Bowl and things like that.
Those New Year's 6 games are going to happen. I don't think they're going to happen around New Year's. I think they might push them back.
Right. And, as well, the TV deals and such, but it's hey, if you push to spring, maybe at that point the virus isn't as bad as it is now. Maybe by then, states like Utah and Arizona, their cases would be going down, and they could have set a more strategic plan and learned from some of these other conferences how to do it or how not to do it, and have played out every single Pac-12 game, had a Pac-12 champion, and that would have been the end of it. But for right now, it's an absolute mess.
And every single champion, I think, needs to have an asterisk by their name this year. That's a hot take. Call me crazy, but even the national champion needs to have an asterisk by their name, because at the end of the day, there's not one team probably going to play a full schedule. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to be affected across the country, not just in the Pac-12. Across the country, everyone is going to be affected by this, and there's no way that anyone plays a full schedule. And it's just, at this point, I would rather take a spring season. I would have enjoyed a spring season rather than having constant heartache every single week. sitting by my phone, refreshing my email and refreshing Twitter between 12 and 1 to see if my game is happening, if Utah's playing. And it's like Devin Lloyd and the rest of the guys talked about in media availability today. Like, it's not only draining on them physically, but mentally. Like, to be preparing for these teams and preparing for these games and then having it ripped out from underneath you at the last minute, that's gotta mess with you up here. And like Devin said, he's like, we gotta make sure that the guys aren't like slipping into depression. Like, this could make them depressed. This could like mess with everything. I think if it gets to the point where there are more games canceled than are being canceled than are being played, just throw in the towel. Just call it. Like, no one's gonna be upset with you, Pac-12. No one's gonna be upset. Everyone's gonna be like, oh well, at least they tried.
Well, and I think everybody's kind of laughing at the Pac-12 right now, anyways. I mean, people are continually talking about how just unfortunate, but how kind of embarrassing it is. I mean, you look at the other Power Fives, and for whatever reason, they're not having the same issues that the Pac-12 is. And a lot of that has to do with some of the states that the schools are in. I mean, Utah's just not in a good place right now. You're not going to be able to produce football games when there's so many cases occurring in the state. But yeah, Sammy, I agree with you. Even if the spring season was just 4 games, I would prefer a consistent 4-game season, because some people argue, spring season wouldn't have been as doable because you're not going to get them to play 2 seasons in 1 year, which I could probably agree with. But I would have taken a 4-game season, just letting these guys get some reps, letting them play, even if they didn't want to do a Pac-12 championship, just to be consistent, to make sure the players were safe, to do it right, and to figure it out. Because what if this happens again next year? What if the virus isn't completely gone? We might be dealing with seasons like this for another year or so.
I don't know at this point. Like, I want Utah football. I want to watch the U boys play, and I just want to see football here in Utah, because I know how much Utah fans have wanted it, because we're watching teams around us in the same state playing, and it's getting hard to watch. And I think one of the other big things that people said about against the spring season was opt-outs, because a lot of these guys are going to want to prepare for the NFL draft. And the NFL's already said they're not moving their draft, they're not moving their combine, they're not moving anything to accommodate for that. So we're seeing a lot of opt-outs as it is, but we were going to see tenfold if they move this to a spring season. And it's just, like, the Pac-12 is already a joke as it is, because we're already, like, it's the call in the Oregon State game last week made national news because of how bad it was. Like, the Pac-12 is just setting themselves up for humiliation every single week. Like, until we can get rid of Larry Scott, there's no way people can take the Pac-12 seriously.
Well, it leads to the disrespect and the fact that just nobody really takes the Pac-12 as serious than the other, compared to the other Power 5 schools. Now, I've seen a lot of people questioning, does the season finish? At this point, I think it will. I think there's just too much at stake. They've already, you're already going. You might as well at this point just finish it, unless, they have a week where every single game is canceled. That's the only way I see, if they just call it, where it'd be like, okay, every single game's canceled. We don't have a single team that can play. And with the quarantine and isolation rules, that's probably, we have seen
2+ weeks.
Yeah, we've seen the effects at Utah with missing our first 2 games. Now, this third week is our real chance, real opportunity to actually play. Hopefully USC is in a good place, so that, it would just be really unfortunate if we're ready to go
and they're not.
And they're not. Not to blame USC or blame anybody. We've been the team that hasn't been ready to go the last 2 weeks, but it would really stink. But another thing is, Sammy, are there other possible ways that they can carry out the season? Is there anything they're doing wrong, or that they could be doing better to really help this season finish out?
I don't, the thing is you can't put these kids in a bubble. Like, this isn't the NBA. a lot of these schools don't have the financial resources, and also conferences aren't going to want to pay for that. Student athletes are supposed to be treated the same way as a normal student, and normal students aren't being put in bubbles to do their things. So the Pac-12 thought that having like this daily like rapid testing was going to like solve a lot of these issues, but I don't think it's working. And there's not a lot I think that they can do, because, and like people brought up like the MLB, how the MLB had that little like had that surge in cases like towards the beginning of stuff, but how they were able to get it under control. I just don't see how college athletics will be in the same boat as MLB.
Well, rapid testing doesn't keep somebody from getting COVID. It just helps us to know that they have it sooner rather than later. The only solution that I've seen that I think could potentially be possible is just putting every single team in on-campus dorms and just not letting them leave campus for the next month, finish out the season. Because like, athletic director Mark Harlan said, it seems to be that these cases are happening because of the players being involved in the community, and not even necessarily the players going to parties and things like that. Just, they could simply be
going to the grocery store.
Yeah, you go to the grocery store, you touch the wrong item, somebody that had COVID, suddenly you've got it. And then you're on the team and, you might touch one of your teammates or something like that. You're breathing, you're sweating, tackling these guys, and you give it to them, and then it's game over.
Also, like, if you're asymptomatic and you don't know it and you pass it to one of your teammates, like, it's a big mess. Like, honestly, I don't know what the Pac-12 is doing, and I think we can both agree that they fully rushed into this.
Yep.